Hi there, my name is Gabrielle Clark, and I am going to be talking about Google Expeditions. Based on the 2017 Horizon Report, virtual reality was noted as one of the emerging technologies. And Google Expeditions is a way to provide students with a virtual reality experience. So, what is Google Expeditions? So what Google Expeditions is it is a platform through Google, and you can get it as an app, and it provides a virtual reality experience for students. It allows teachers to use and take students on immersive journeys to different locations. So what they are using is they are using a cardboard headset, and then there is a smartphone inside of them, and then when you are synced up with this app, you are able to extend students' learning outside of the walls of the classroom by taking them to different places. So it's in a way taking them on these virtual reality field trips while they're sitting just inside of your classroom. So they use these sets to get to these different locations, and then they are actually immersed in the learning so they can feel like they are actually there. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have us watch this movie here, and this is going to explain a little bit more about how we can take students on a journey outside the walls of our classroom.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon,
Thailand,
ancient Greece,
India,
to Nigeria, my homeland.
one or maybe all of the seven wonders of the world. When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you could go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
All right, so let's do our objective, and we'll talk about the lesson for today.
We're going to take a field trip to Verona, Italy, to see the place where Romeo and Juliet lived.
I'm going to take you on this field trip under the water.
Okay, you guys ready?
Pick up your devices and look in your cardboard.
What is that?
I see a shark.
It allowed us to go somewhere we wouldn't normally be able to go.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China? So much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
This device can actually make us go to places that we've never been before.
It brings the lesson to you.
You have to see it for yourself to believe it.
There's so much other places to see, so you know that it's never going to end.
So this video really brings to life the idea of how we can bring students on a journey and bring their learning to the next level by letting them actually experience these different places. Now, when we're thinking about this, we really want to have this broad idea that we can reinvent the field trip. So many of us can get stuck into this idea that we don't have any money to go on field trips. We don't have enough time to go on field trips. There's a lot of logistical concerns with field trips. Well, you can actually reinvent that and bring the world inside your very own classroom. So I want you to think about this map of the world here and think about where you are in the country and think about where you could take your students. Maybe you could take your students to Africa. Maybe you want to take them over here. Maybe you want to take them to South America. Maybe you want them to explore the ocean here. Maybe you want to take them up here near the North Pole. The opportunities are really endless, and you really need to think about, how is this going to impact my students' learning? Is this really going to help them truly understand and grasp the content in a more meaningful way? So some of the possible advantages of Google Expeditions is that it gives students that opportunity to be immersed in places where they might not typically be able to go, maybe because of cost, maybe just because it's super far away. It allows them to experience that. Typically, this heightens student engagement. They're excited about it, they think it's fun, and they're learning at the same time. This pushes their level of learning to the next level. This also can promote curiosity in students. It might get them thinking about things that they're interested in now, questions that they have, innovations that they're thinking about based on some of these immersive learning experiences. And overall, Google Expeditions and these virtual reality cardboard headsets are pretty low cost. If you think about the price of field trips in general, it's much lower of a cost for you to use these virtual headsets in Google Expeditions. So if you do go to Google Expeditions, you can get a little bit more information on this. And the whole idea is that you are bringing your lessons to life. So this is what the virtual headsets look like. Now, one thing to remember is that you do have to put a smartphone in here that does have Wi-Fi access so that it can use the Google Expeditions app. But in essence, it can allow students to take field trips to virtually anywhere. And then you can use the app to explore different places. So if you look carefully here, this one is actually an expedition to the underwater of the Galapagos Islands. So I'm really wanting you to push yourself to think about how could you bring your lessons to life and push your students' level of learning to the next level of engagement. Now, there are some cons to consider. I did say earlier that the cost is low, which it is, but you do have to use smartphones and you do have to have access to the internet. So smartphones can break, Wi-Fi costs money, smartphones cost money. So there is a cost that you would need to invest into these sets here. Another thing to consider is that potentially students could maybe experience motion sickness if they are experiencing these different places through the headset. So that's just something to consider. However, I certainly think that the advantages outweigh the cons. Now, some different ideas that I have thought about for my third grade classroom, I'm going to share here. And I want to be clear that when I was thinking through these, I was really thinking about my learning targets in my classroom. Of course, this is a really fun way to heighten student engagement and motivation in your classroom, but it also is very important that you are meeting content standards and not just doing this because it's fun. And I think there is a way to do both of those things at the same time. So we teach the different climate zones, so I think it would be really awesome to take students on expeditions to the different weather zones throughout our world. I also think that another idea that I have would be to have students experience a roller coaster. We do force in motion in my classroom, and it would be really fun for the students to go on a virtual experience on a roller coaster, and then they could actually experience it, and then we could talk about the different forces in action there. Another idea would be to go and experience one of the Native American mounds from way back in the day, and then students could really have a firm grasp on what they looked like so that that could bring their learning to the next level. Another idea would be to have students experience different animal adaptations and where these different animals are living in the biomes throughout our world. I also think it would be fun for students to experience the different types of weather. We study weather in third grade, and then there also is a point where students are able to think about different types of severe weather and then design solutions that they think might be able to improve some of the impacts of severe weather. So it would be really neat to launch this by having students experience the severe weather through the cardboard virtual reality set, and then from there they could go through the design process and think about what could be a design that could reduce the impacts of that weather. And then a huge one that I really could see myself doing in third grade is using these experiences to really add to students' writing capabilities when it comes to descriptive writing. You could send them on these journeys, and then they could have to write about them in a descriptive way with lots of sensory details, and that would really bring their writing to life in a very engaging way for the students. I did find some sites that are extremely helpful. Google does have a training site that if you go to and you log in, it actually has you go through some of the planning that you should do with the virtual reality sets. So if you look here, it's really nice. It has some steps here for you as to what you should do before the expedition, what you should do during it, and what you should do after it. So it really has you think out and map out your expedition so that you're being purposeful in the way that you enact it in your classroom. Another site that I found that is extremely helpful, and I actually bookmarked it, is here. It's TES, and it is under Teaching Resources. And if you scroll down to this site, you can see here that these are actually lesson plans. So here is one on the pyramids. Here is one on the auditory system. Here is one on climate change, on narrative writing. And these are lessons that are already developed that you can use the virtual reality headsets with to really heighten student learning and extend the learning outside the walls of your classroom. So I would really encourage you to check these out. And there's even, if you were to click this view more, there's even more. There are tons here, and they're all, for the most part, free. And the last thing that I wanted to share is that there actually is a spreadsheet of all of the Google expeditions, which I'm sure it doesn't include every single one, but it was last updated on 9/11 of 2017. And if you scroll down, it goes through the names of the expeditions, the different panoramas that are involved with them, and a description of them. And even if you go to the right a little bit, sometimes there are lesson plans uploaded here by teachers to help give you ideas for how you would use those in your classroom. So that's just a nice resource that you can use when looking for Google Expeditions. One thing to consider is that there have already been 2 million students who have experienced Google Expeditions, who have been given the opportunity from their teachers to extend their learning outside the walls of their classroom. So I'm encouraging you to connect your students to the world outside of the walls of your classroom in just 3 steps. All it takes is to first indicate an expected learning target of your students. Second, locate the Google virtual reality headsets with the smartphone for your students. And last but not least, you're going to use the Google Expeditions app with your headsets to allow students to experience the content, bringing their learning to life. It is that simple. It does not take that many steps. The app is very user-friendly. And in this case, if you go through all of these steps, you are going to launch your students away, extending their learning outside the walls of the classroom in a very engaging way. I hope you try out Google Expeditions. Thanks for listening.